This is for those of us who feel lost, who feel confused about how and when we got to where we are today. When did we turn into such different people from the people we once were and thought we would be forever? Life feels so unfamiliar for some of us, many of us, if we're being really, really honest with ourselves. And it can get very, very lonely here because no one else, no matter how close to us they are, ever really knows the deepest intricacies of who we are. Like our very raw and unfiltered thoughts. Like where we really found reflections of ourselves in the world and what those reflections looked like. For me, for example, I know that I used to be a very, very introspective girl. I mean, if you think this is introspective, you really have no idea what you're on about. I used to see every lull in my day as an excuse to pull out my journal and pen and unearth roots upon roots from within my soul. I used to instinctively respond to the world around me as though that was what I was put on this earth to do. But somewhere along the way, something very drying happened. It wasn't a sudden shift. It was more like a slow and steady, gradual loss of the true self, if you know what I mean. In layman's terms, I guess we can call this growing up. Or this is what we've been taught to believe is growing up. Adulting. But I feel very strongly against that. I think there's so much more to uncover here. So yeah, this one is for those of us who every once in a while still catch glimpses of version 1 of the people that we originally were and wonder if we can ever go back to being those unscathed, untainted, beautiful people. This one is for the rebels, but a different kind of rebellion, I guess. So make yourself nice and cozy, and let's begin today's conversation. Hello, my friends, and welcome back or welcome here to another episode of the Being Aloud podcast. As always, I'm your host, Biba Shea, and I just want you to know that for today's episode, I didn't even write a script, like not even an outline, not even like main thoughts that I want to talk about. And the reason for that is, like, I usually don't script my episodes at all, but I do tend to like have an idea of where I want to go with the episode and what points I want to say, like if there are many, like, or any, not many, main points that I want to say that I want to make sure I don't forget or whatever, I'll write those down, etc. But the reason why for today's episode I'm not doing that is because this is very much it feels like an awakening for me. It's something I'm very much in the middle of, which I say in many of the episodes, but you'll see what I mean by that. But it's something that I'm learning and unearthing almost on a daily basis, and have been for the past couple of weeks. So if you have been seeing the community posts that I've been posting on YouTube, I posted a few and let you guys know that I was in London for the past couple of weeks. And during the first weekend of that, so this was the 13th and 14th of April, if you're watching this in real time, of 2024. And I had a workshop. I got the incredible opportunity. Like, seriously, truly, I'm still very much blown away and in shock by the fact that I was able to attend this workshop and that it all worked out. But not just that, like, you know, when things happen in very divine timing where the stars align, like everything that we talked about during the workshop was exactly what I needed to hear and exactly what I needed to be slapped into in this season of my life. Because there's so much that's going on, and internally and externally. And I live in Cairo, Egypt, where I know a lot of the listeners are from as well. And so if you are from Cairo, you know just how intense it is to be here. Like, it's not just, oh, it's intense because it's the city. It's not that. There's like the added element of the fact that you all circles kind of end up intertwining, and you find out that you know everyone and everyone knows everyone. And even if you don't know them personally, you know that you know them because you know that someone you know knows them. You know what I mean? And so even just being a person on a daily basis is hard because there's an added element of pressure and of stress. But then one of the layers of that stress or of that pressure is the layer of feeling like you're boxed in. And I remember struggling with this so much growing up, where I was feeling like, okay, like as I was growing and as I was changing and evolving, and my life's experiences were changing, and they were changing me, and I was truly evolving. Like there was a very specific phase specifically in my life where I recall feeling so changed. Like every day I felt different. But then I would go out with my friends who have known me my entire life, and it's as though I wasn't given this permission to be this new person that I was becoming, because in their eyes I was still the booba who was silly and goofy, and like the booba who was a doormat and things like that. Like I was still boxed into things that I was genuinely trying to break out of, And so that was really, really hard. And then eventually I moved away from that group of friends, and like God provided me with incredible friends, like new friends. But then all of a sudden, I got boxed in with them as well. And I changed and I evolved, and so much of me changed and evolved. But still, even with this new group of friends who now became my old group of friends, I became boxed in because I realized, wow, I'm forever evolving and forever changing. And is this going to be my life now? Like, am I going to have to change and hop around from one group of friends to the next every time I feel like I have evolved as a person? Like, is this really it? But then I realized, and this is something that I've been unpacking more and more these past couple of weeks, is maybe the problem was in me. And here's what I mean by that. I believed that as I grow and as I change and as I evolve, like, let's just face it, life happens and then you're not the same. Certain things happen in our lives that leave us very, very different from the people that we used to be. And we tend to believe, or I'm going to speak for myself, but I believed for the longest time that I could only be this newer version of myself ever. And over time, like, I started developing this real disdain, this real kind of resentment towards any old version of myself. And so what ended up happening was that I completely shunned and did away with every element of who I used to be before, in order to replace that with this new evolved booba. And let me tell you, this is like a very subconscious process. It's not like you wake up one day and decide, today I'm this new person, and therefore yesterday's old person is now old and irrelevant, and I must throw that person away in the garbage. But it is like a slow, gradual process as you start losing friends and then making new friends. And then as your character develops and as you go through like hardships in life that change you and mold you and shape you in ways you never thought you would be shaped and molded and changed and whatever. Like you start kind of stripping away. And what the world will have us believe, and I think this is the narrative that's spoken so highly of on social media, is that as you grow up, you kind of you peel away the layers of that old, irrelevant self as you come closer to the core. Like if we're going to think we're an onion, for example, we're peeling away at the like outermost layers of that onion in the hopes of arriving at the core of this onion, thinking that the core of this onion is going to be us in purest form. The purest version of ourselves is this person that's going to arrive or emerge from within the onion. And it's like our journey, the purpose of it is to peel this onion. And I mean, when presented in a way like that, that sounds pretty appealing, right? That sounds like I have no problem with that, peeling away at the layers of myself that no longer serve me so that I can reach this like core version of myself. And I guess there are some areas in our lives where, sure, that is applicable. It has no negative implications or connotations whatsoever. It's all great. We're all good. Perfect. But what I discovered during the workshop that I did in London, I don't know if I already said this before, but it was with the author of Eat, Pray, Love, which you must have been living under a rock if you don't know what this book is. Her name is Elizabeth Gilbert, and it was a workshop with her, and it was a creativity workshop. And it was in that workshop that I had this like rude awakening. It was truly, truly like a spiritual, emotional, transformative experience. This 2-day workshop. But basically what I discovered was that it's quite the opposite, actually. Sure, there are some layers of ourselves that we want to peel away, right? We want to do away with negative parts of ourselves in order to make space for, more mature, better versions of ourselves, or better versions of parts of ourselves, because we are so much more sophisticated than to say like, I'm now this very evolved version of myself. Like that's very simplistic and 2D, like very 2D. However, sure, that's what the introspective work is for, is to find out what parts of us we need to do better in. But what I discovered is we're not peeling away in order to reach the core of the onion. At least that's not the way I like to phrase it or verbalize it, because the root and core of the onion have always been there. We just think that our young selves, our juvenile selves that weren't fully mature yet, that they were altogether something that we need to scrape away. That our childhood, the core of who we are, the silly, goofy memories we have of like playing in the sand or whatever, oh, that was just immature booba. And that's a layer of the onion that I need to peel back. When in reality, all along, the truest version of booba was there in the sandbox, was there when she scraped her knee, was there when whatever, because the core of the onion stays in the onion the entire time. And so I don't know why that was like a very, very rude awakening in my life, because especially after everything that I've been through, I wasn't intentionally on a journey to find the core of who I am. But everything around me says that that's the journey we're all on, right? Finding the core of who we are. Digging to find the core of who we are. But like the core of who I am never went anywhere. It's just that the world made me believe like the core of who I wasn't really the core, and that there's something a lot more enlightened that I need to be finding. There's like this grander purpose that I need to be after. But no, I have come to discover that there's nothing wrong with little scrappy booba. The booba who literally didn't think for 2 seconds before she spoke. And that came from a place of innocence, of purity, of a very like transparent, very pure, again, like unscathed, untainted version of a person who is genuinely full of wonder and full of awe and full of amazement at every single thing in the world around her. And this Booba that was so unsuspecting because she still hadn't seen anything bad from anybody and therefore was super trusting of every human being and just gave herself and loved people so freely and so wildly and so radically. Like that Booba is made to believe by the world that she is wrong, that she's a bad thing, that she's not relevant in this world today. And I feel like the innocence that we're all born with is our true selves. Like that's our true self. The true self is who you were before the world told you who you have to be. And I know that that's like such a cliche quote that we see everywhere and we hear everywhere and la la. But like when you experience that and what that means, like the true ripple effect of what that means for you as a person in your life, who are you? Like, who are you really? And so basically what I've been doing these past couple of weeks is I've been journaling non-freaking stop. Like actually on a daily basis. Wait, I'm reaching for my journal. Of course it's open because I've been journaling every day, I'm telling you. But pages and pages and pages of trying to remember who I actually was. And you know who I actually was? I was a writer. And I know I still say that I'm a writer, but how often do I write? Because this world has deadened that part of me. The part of me that's so eager to pick up a pen and paper and start writing about her day or her thoughts or start responding to a line in a movie that a character told another character. And that kind of like, that Booba that was like unfiltered. Like as soon as something would happen, I would pick up a pen and paper and write. That Booba was taught somewhere along the lines, somewhere along the way, that she needs to spend more time on social media scrolling whenever she gets 3 seconds of her time that are free, rather than picking up a pen and paper. She needs to scroll. She needs to turn on the TV. She needs to blah, 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 blah. And if she writes, that writing has to be profitable. It has to be shareable on social media. It has to be clickbaity. It has to be blah, blah, blah. And eventually, slowly but surely, I let the world taint the authenticity and the purity of my expression of the core of my onion. And I let the world callous that until I could no longer hear that Booba who wants to come out, the Booba who has something to say, the Booba who is loving and crazy and wild and free, and who notices the good things and pays attention to the world, actually pays attention to the world. I let the world tell me that instead I should give in to distractions, that instead I should be something else, you know, that I should use my time in a different way. Which brings me to another point that I want to talk about, and that is like what we do with our time really, really determines the kind of people that we want to be. And so if you feel like you want to go back to the original, like kind of iPhone 1, like version 1 of who you were and who you actually are, which is the core of your onion, then your time and how you spend your time needs to reflect that. If you are spending all your time on social media, scrolling and basically reacting to other people's pretend lives, then you're not really responding to your world. You're reacting to other people's worlds. And is that who you are? It could be, but like, be honest with yourself. Ask yourself that question. How does your time reflect the person that you want to be? And that's why I've been so adamant about returning to journaling and writing every freaking day. I've been writing every single day, pages and pages, more than I've written in years. Really, 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 like more than I've written in years. Another thing I've been doing is I've been reading. I've been reading so much more. I read like 350-page book in like 4 days. And wow, wow, the ability to slow down and return to who I was. Because as I was reading, I was also inspired by things. And rather than just like close the book and then move on to the next thing in my very busy schedule, I closed the book and I journaled. And I sat with that one sentence that rippled, that left its mark on me, you know? And that's the booba that I always was. But another thing that really taints these little baby authentic selves, the cores of our onions, is bad experiences. When it's so easy to let terrible experiences in our lives taint us and maim us and make us bitter and turn us into sour, angry people. And I mean, I will say, in all honesty and all vulnerability, that's who I was. And that's who I've been for the last 3 years. I've been this very bitter, very calloused, angry, cynical version of myself. So much so that, like, as I was unearthing a lot of this during the workshop, I was in actual tears where I couldn't stop crying because I was able to very strongly see the contrast between the very innocent, fun-loving booba that I was and then the booba that I've become these past 3 years because of my experiences, because of the things that I've been through. And just seeing what I have allowed and permitted my experiences and the world to turn me into, all under the guise of adulthood, all under the guise of, well, this is growing up. This is what it's like to be an adult, you know. You're no longer like, oh, I'm so happy. Look at the rainbow. Look at the butterfly. Look at the flower. Now you're like, oh, great. Another rainbow on a terrible day. I don't want to be alive today. Like, that really became my attitude because being alive started to suck because my experience was full of pain. But the fact that my experience was full of pain is in no way a definition, and it in no way boxes me again into a box where beauty isn't allowed or where I'm not permitted to marvel and be absolutely blown away and dumbfounded by a silver lining in a cloud on a winter day. That's still a freaking amazing thing, a freaking silver lining on a beautiful cloud on a winter day, and it's worth marveling at. And the fact that I've experienced pain doesn't mean that that pain gets to remove the booba, the original booba, who was untainted, unscathed, and loved life and recognized beauty and stood in awe of it. And so I just kind of wanted today's episode to be just a heart to heart. Like, truly, these are my unfiltered thoughts. It's what I'm going through. It's what I'm learning. I'm still trying to see like how I can practically be this untainted person despite the fact that I have been tainted. Like the fact is I have been broken. The fact is I have been hurt and I have experienced pain. And my innocence to pain has been lost. But that doesn't mean that my innocence as the core of who I am needs to be lost as well, because I am the core of that onion. That she's always been here, and I just need to listen to her more. I need to choose her. I need to choose to do the things that she loves to do, such as picking up a pen and paper and writing, because she existed before, doom scrolling was a thing. Even when I had a phone, I had a limit put on that phone by my parents because a lot of screen time isn't good, And it's my adulthood that now, for some reason, chooses the things that deaden me, the things that callous me, instead of the things that make me come alive. And so I encourage you today to just think of the original you, the original, like, version 1 of who you were. What identified that person? What did that person love to do? When that person was bored and couldn't just switch on the TV whenever they wanted because the parents had a limit, or couldn't doom scroll because Instagram wasn't yet invented, or whatever. What did the original version of who you were love to do? And maybe choose that. Maybe choose that over things that the world wants to make you believe are the only way. You know, adulthood doesn't mean we lose our spark. That's not what adulthood means. Not at all. I feel like a lot of us are broken. For some reason, I get this feeling because I talk to people, I have friends, and because I myself am broken. But what I mean is, I feel like a lot of us feel like we've lost that innocence. And that for some reason has become normalized. It's normal for us to be cynical. It's normal for us to be bitter. It's normal for us to be angry because we've experienced pain. I don't know. I'm learning that there might be another way. That way is acknowledging that pain is a thing, acknowledging that difficulty is a thing, acknowledging that for many of us, our pain is something we're going to have to continue living with for the rest of our lives. But I'm learning to wonder what it looks like to approach my pain with a curiosity, trying to see how that pain will evolve with me as I evolve and what it's going to look like as I grow. But I'm also learning to welcome my innocence that never really went anywhere, despite the fact that I have experienced pain and trauma and suffering and everything like that. But how can I let my innocence and my childlike wonder exist in the same room with my pain? So, yeah, pretty sure we're going to be talking about this a lot more. So I hope that today's episode encouraged you to kind of get into your own head and think for yourself. Think about how your pain and your innocence can coexist in one room in a little chamber in your heart, and maybe journal about it. Maybe don't just get off this podcast and doom scroll or move on to the next thing in your life. Maybe set a timer even to just 10 minutes, 5 minutes if that's all you have, and journal, respond, think about the person you are now, and then think back to the person you were originally when you were 5 years old or whatever, because that's the original design for who you were meant to be. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to today's episode or watching it on YouTube. Specifically to the people on YouTube, please leave your comments, leave your thoughts in the description below so that we can grow this community and keep having amazing conversations. And everywhere else, YouTube included, please be sure to like and subscribe and leave a review and maybe share this with your friends. And yeah, let's keep this community growing. Yep, I love showing up for you guys, so I absolutely can't wait to see you again here next time. And yeah, I'll see you again here next time.